So today is exciting because we are talking about joy by design, how to bring more joy, more happiness into your life. And today we invite listeners to rethink their approach, to rethink your approach to daily joy and happiness and fulfillment, and to find ways to allow more of that into your life.
I love this topic, and I love it because honestly, it is something I've struggled with a little bit over the last couple of years. And that seems strange, even to me, to say, and first of all, to say that I've struggled with joy and happiness when I have a really good life. So why would I be struggling with joy and happiness and fun? And I think it's about the words you use, the in allowing, embracing, and just appreciating those things that do show up. Because I think I look at you and I, we are both, we're not serious people, but we're serious in what we do. You are
Mm.
an executive coach who works with people in their careers and in their ability to be out there and show up as the best person they can be. As a business coach, I work with people who are building businesses and all the stress that comes with that.
Mm.
So why are we doing a podcast about joy and about fun? And part of that comes to an experience you and I had together recently when we got to go to Costa Rica on a very special retreat. And it was one of those life fulfilling dreams, right? Of getting to go and be in the jungle and on this mountain and be taken care of. And yes, we had fun and we had happiness and we were around amazing people while we were there. But at least for me, and I know for you as well, it helped to kind of shift how we
Mm.
see fun and joy and how we allow that into our lives more intentionally.
All right, so let me tell about this retreat. We should mention Teresa Thomas. So Teresa Thomas is
Absolutely.
based in Minneapolis, and Teresa dives into bringing more happiness into your life. She's a facilitator. She gives presentations. She brings people through workshops. She brings people on retreats, and she teaches people how to connect with their joy.
Yes,
And
yes.
so she has this retreat that's an annual retreat, and it's called 50 Fun Things. And she brings a select group of people to a mountaintop in Costa Rica. And the whole purpose of that retreat is to get people to reconnect with their joy, to discover what lights them up, to discover what really makes them happy, to discover what might be missing in their lives right now, and to take those insights and to intentionally, embrace things that do make you happier.
And all of that, and this is another piece of it that I think we can talk about a little later, in addition to the joy and the fun and the happiness, what starts to open up for all of us is a clearer vision of
Hmm.
what's possible for us and our lives. And the future self component of what we did was so much fun at this retreat. And that had a big impact on me. That piece of, you know, getting into that feeling of self love and joy and fun because
Hmm.
we were isolated. You know,
Hmm.
as you pointed out, we didn't really have we had very poor internet service up there. We had internet service at the top of a mountain in a jungle. So I'm not complaining about the quality of internet service we had, but it did limit how much time we spent on our devices, which, as entrepreneurs, like most people, we live with that phone and that computer in front of us. We didn't
Hmm.
have that. So it really changed how we experienced being there and the things that we did.
Yep. When I discovered that the internet was sketchy at best, I was inwardly groaning inside. It's like, what? I can't scroll through social media or check the news or reach out to people. But then that void that was there, it took me a little bit, but that void then began filling with an awareness of the beautiful surroundings that were there. I really started to take it all in. And then that constant chatter inside of my head began taking long breaks of silence. And what stood out for me was that I found great peace and joy in those moments of silence. And another thing that I noticed that brought me joy, I didn't realize it until I discovered I was doing it, was I started long gazing, right? So we look at our phones, we look at our
Mhm.
laptops, we look at our iPads, and how often do we look up and out? And
Right?
so I began long gazing out over the vistas, out over the mountains, out over the oceans. And this realization came into me of how much I enjoyed that. I could just feel my parasympathetic nervous system, clicking in. And it felt so good on my eyes. So those are two things, very
Sure.
simple things that I discovered that brought me joy. I,
Hmm.
I want to jump in and ask you a question. Can you share a moment from the retreat that just took your breath away? And why did it stand out to you?
Oh, wow. There were so many. One that stands out for me, which was early in our week there, was being out on the balcony outside our room, and it was sunrise. And I don't see it. I'm a nighttime person most of the time. I will go to bed at, 1 or 2 in the morning, and I'm up at 7 or 8. And because of the lack of internet, one of the reasons, right? Many of us went to bed early. I went to bed much earlier than I usually do, and I was up with the sunrise. And I really, really appreciated being out there with the sunrise and hearing local birds, the green
Mm.
parrots, the toucans, seeing them fly from tree to tree, just those little things. I felt like I could sit there and watch them. And I thought, I'm blessed to live in a place where I have a lot of wildlife outside my window where I live. How
Mm.
often do I take the time to really sit and listen to those birds and watch what's going on around me? I'm always rushing off to the next thing. So the fact that I was up early and we didn't have a tightly scheduled week, and I could just sit there as long as I chose to
And
and
now those things brought
appreciate
you
that.
joy.
They
Yeah.
brought me joy. They brought me peace. I
Mm.
think it really fed that happiness. It's kind of like overfilling your bucket, right? A little bit inside so you can tap into it, because we're always going to have moments that, yeah, they're not the greatest. We're always going to have challenges in life, and that's great. That's part of how we grow, and we don't have to be there all the time. And
Right. So this taps
yeah,
into what we had talked about allowing for those
yes.
moments, right? So when you're sitting, at your desk and the window's open, to allow yourself to take note of the birds chirping outside your window
Hmm.
and long gazing out, over the nature in your yard to reconnect with that sense of joy and peace that you experienced when you were in Costa Rica.
Right. And I think it changes. Those kind of experiences are, oh, they're amazing, right? Um, we don't have to go to Costa Rica for that. We
Right.
do need to step away from our everyday life, whether it's for a couple of hours, whether it's for a weekend, whatever that time frame is, so that we can come back refreshed. Because I know for me, coming back from Costa Rica, something shifted. I'm not a
Mm.
massively new person, right? I'm not going out and changing major things in my life from it. But something internally changed for me in how I see things as fun, how I appreciate the joy of just being around people and in the right space versus, I guess it's more about being in the now,
But
appreciating
being
where I'm at
present.
right now. Yes, being present.
Right.
Yes.
And that's so important. I think, you know, once we have that present moment and we cut out all of the digital, things that are in front of us, I think for most of us, myself included, that anxiety creeps in right
Yes.
away. So you feel
Hmm.
like you have to latch onto something quick. But if you just trust the process, and just be present, have the courage to remain and be present, an entire world opens up to you of
It
what
does.
feels good.
And I hear you use the word just, and I think it's not that easy. when we're
Right.
used to being driven and striving all the time, and because of the work that you and I do, we are always helping others with their challenges as well. And we carry that with us a little bit, also as we're going into our own lives, right?
Mhm.
Your executives you work with and the business owners I work with, we want to give them everything we can, right? We want to give them what they need. That doesn't mean that we should allow that to stop us and encouraging them to have more fun and more joy throughout our day-to-day basis. You talked about Teresa and the 50 Fun Things program that she facilitates and that she's created. And one of the things that always stands out to me when she first started this program was some of the things on there are things as simple as sitting outside at a coffee shop and having a special cup of coffee.
Mhm.
So that's going to cost you a few dollars and maybe 15 minutes of your time.
But
And
what are the benefits? What's the
right.
payback for, but
Yes. It could just be a regular day to do it, or you can take that time and really appreciate it.
so let's go into how Teresa designed the experience for us with this retreat. So over the course of the retreat, Teresa was priming our pump for discovering what brings each of us joy. So she brought us through, many exercises to get in touch with what we used to enjoy, what inspires us, what makes us laugh out loud, what excites us. And she brought us on all of these excursions that opened our minds and our spirits and our senses. And all the while that we are taking these, what we're listening to her in workshops, and while we are having time alone and time with each other and out on these excursions, we're collecting data, right? And we're
Yes.
envisioning a life built on joy and what it would look like, what it would feel like. And so we captured all of that data on these worksheets. And by the time we left, we had at a very minimum 50 fun things that we
Right.
want to bring into our life or experience going forward. So I have mine right here, and I just want to share a few of the things that were on my list. A dress up cocktail party. Now,
Oh,
that might
yes.
really seem silly, but nobody dresses up anymore unless it's for work, and then it's business casual at best.
Right.
I miss the days when we would dress up and have cocktail hour. And so on my list, in fact, we're going to have something coming up here in April. My husband and I are hosting a few guests, and it's a dress up cocktail party. Rock climbing with my kids, going to an air show in Alaska, fun guitar
Wow.
songs that I can play on my guitar, um, clay mask rituals. The clay mask ritual that we did while we were in Costa Rica in the middle of the jungle on the river. I actually bought the clay so I can do those here at home. Playing pickleball, a successful podcast, Barb, boating, a game night or a movie night with my family. They're just simple things. But when you add all of these things up together, the 50 that I have, it makes a life well lived.
Yes, it does. And it makes us, I think, for me, I'll speak for myself, I think it makes me a better person. It makes
Mm,
me a better business owner, a better business coach, a better mom, a better grandma, right? To
mm,
be able to take the time to be present and to have strengthened that. I guess I look at it as kind of a muscle, that
mhm.
happiness and that joy and that fun muscle a little bit, because I get so used to go, 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 right?
And I
Yeah, I've
think
always,
every and I think everybody here in America is on that go, 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 busy, 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 strive, strive, strive. Because just last week, the World Happiness Report, this was in the news, revealed that the United States dropped from 15th place to 23rd place. And this was driven in part by a decline in happiness among young people. So, in this report, people who are aged 60 and older in the US reported high levels of well being, compared to the younger people. In fact, the report found that there was a dramatic decrease in the self-reported well-being of people aged 30 and below.
Wow.
It surprises me that it was just at 30 because, you know, women are waiting longer to have children. And so they are in their 30s when they're having children. And there's so much research around how those is as fulfilling and wonderful as they are. Raising young children is actually very stressful.
It is.
And so this report is showing that our happiness levels as a nation as a whole has dropped significantly.
Well, I think one of the ahas for me out of that is that it's really not about having it all. I mean, I don't know that anybody feels like they have it all. But in the United States, if you compare us around the world, I mean, we have the opportunity to have, you know, a really good life
Hmm.
if we compare it to how most people live in this world. It's not perfect. And not everybody has the same level of peace and resources around the country. There's a difference there. But I think we are overall a pretty rich nation in opportunities and even finances for most people. And yet we're
Yeah,
not happy with it.
but we're
It's
still
not
not happy with it.
right.
Right.
It's not bringing us happiness. And I think what we're talking about here with the being intentional and allowing the fun and the joy, I think that's what's missing.
Well, there was another story that was put out by NPR, and this was last November, so about four months ago. And they released an analysis that came out of an initiative called the Big Joy Project. And that analysis found that people who commit daily micro acts of joy, those people experience a 25% increase in emotional well-being over the course of a week. So that includes greater well-being, better coping, less stress, more satisfaction with relationships. And in case listeners want to dive deeper, that Big Joy project comes from the Greater Good Science Center at the University of California, Berkeley. And so far, the researchers have preliminary results from over 70,000 participants in more than 200 countries. So this is a significant project here. And they found that committing those micro acts of joy led to increased feelings of hope, optimism, as well as moments of fun and silliness. So Barbie, from your perspective, what do you think those micro acts of joy might be?
Well, I think this brings me right back to Teresa's 50 fun things
Mhm.
is it is identifying those small things that you're going to be intentional about, whether it is that cup of coffee for yourself, or it's, a couple of quiet moments when you can get them. Maybe it's reading a silly book, or, just I'm blessed to have a swing on my front porch. It's my favorite place to be when the Minnesota weather allows it, is to be
Mhm.
out there, even if I'm working, but sometimes just with a book or just to be silent. So I think it's remembering that we can plan the great big trips. And I think that might be where some of the disconnect comes in, is with the internet and with social media. We see all these big things other people are doing, right? We see their trips, we see their retreats, we see their happy, smiley family pictures. We don't see what's really going on behind all of that.
Mhm.
And I think we need to find that for ourselves in our day to day and not wait for the vacation, not
Mhm.
wait for, a week away from the house or whatever that might be for that to experience that joy, but to be more intentional about it right where we are right now today.
And a way to figure out what brings you joy is to start a gratitude journal. To at
Yes.
the end of every day, you list 5 things that you're grateful for. And I remember, so I have been doing a gratitude journal for about 20 years. And I remember
Hmm.
when I first started out, some days were so crappy. I would be like, the day is over, that I'm in my bed, that I've got comfy pajamas on, that my phone is off and everybody's leaving me alone. Right. But,
Right.
and that's okay. But then there are times when you realize that taking a walk outside, even when it's snowing and cold, feels good.
Mhm.
Uh, Walking barefoot along the riverbank feels good. Uh, Asking someone else what wonderful thing they experienced today feels good. You know, get hearing my granddaughter say Nana opens up my heart and breaks it into a million pieces all at the same time. You know, those things feel good. So when you know what brings you joy, what you're grateful for, now you can
Mhm.
start to lean in towards them, right? And
Yes.
to allow them to happen, to notice them, and to make space for those things to happen.
And bringing more of those things that bring us joy into our physical space as
Hmm.
well, right? Maybe it's color. You've got that beautiful picture beside you. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's
Hmm.
essential
Right.
oils or it's a candle. Those little things can make even doing some of the things tasks in our lives that feel redundant or boring or even overly challenging can make those things easier by adding
Right.
something that brings you joy. You know, maybe it's cleaning house to your favorite music,
Hmm.
or it's, the little things like having um I was at my daughter's recently and cooking dinner and having jazz music playing in the background,
And I
and
like
that's not
how you
something I usually do, but making sure doing that there just helps set us the whole atmosphere of appreciating this simple dinner in her home,
mhm.
between busy activities with her family.
Yeah, I like how you brought up the visual aspect of it too, by putting out visuals of what brings you joy. So, for example, on my wall, we have in my wall in my dining room, we have photos of our travels. And, when we look at them and people come to our house and ask about them, it immediately brings up those great feelings that we had when we were
Right.
actually there. So we get to relive it. Also, a visual. So I have a guitar. I have not been playing it very much this year. So I put it out where I can't miss it. That reminds me that, I actually like playing this guitar. It brings me joy. And it puts me in the present moment. So now it's there in front of me. There's no way around it. So I pick it up every day now and I, strum a few things on it. So,
And again,
yeah,
it doesn't have to be a 2 hour
mm-mm,
session, right?
no,
Even five or 10
5 minutes.
minutes can relieve some stress. Can just, if you allow it to shut off some of the other things in our lives, it allows more of that fun and joy to come back in. I think as a nation, we've got a lot of things to do, but maybe one of them is to help us as a group of people find more joy and fun and happiness. And each of us has the opportunity to, as each one of us does that more, it grows to the next person.
Yeah, right, right. There's that ripple effect.
Right.
It, it,
Hmm.
it's it's the airplane analogy. If the plane's going down, you put
Yes.
the air mask on yourself first before you
Mhm.
can put it on somebody else. You need to charge your own self before you can start charging others. So what advice, Barb, would you give to our listeners who feel that they are just way too busy to slow down now and embrace joy or discover what brings them joy?
Do it anyway.
Do it anyways.
Do it. And I honestly, it sometimes it'll make you very uncomfortable at first. When I was at a time in my life where I was trying to learn a lot of new things and things were quite stressful, I would go, to away with the family for the weekend, and it would take me 2 days before I could appreciate not doing all those things I'd left behind.
Hmm.
I don't have that long. I've learned to make that shift faster. So
Hmm.
it made me very uncomfortable, and I'll admit it, a little cranky and hard to be around sometimes to pull me out of what I was used to because it was out of my comfort zone. And even joy and happiness can feel out of your comfort zone if you haven't been allowing yourself to experience it. We all experience things different with all our senses, right? Is it words? Is it music? Is it scent? Is it what is it? But for me, part of it is words, right? Using positive words, even
Hmm.
when I don't feel that positive, helps me to feel the more positive about things. And I think that that then resonates out to whoever I happen to be talking to. Just like, when you're speaking with somebody who's coming from a very negative place,
Mhm.
It affects your spirit. It does for me. I
Mhm.
think it does for most of us. The opposite is also true.
Mhm.
I always said my mother, who's been gone now for a number of years, she was an expert at finding positive words for things.
Mm.
Things
That's beautiful.
like, challenging toddlers. Well, isn't she determined today? Okay, I can go with
That's
determined. I
brilliant.
like her better if I think of determined versus
Yeah.
stubborn.
Oh,
And finding
brilliant.
those words for ourselves. For me, words are a big piece of what I do, how
Uh-huh.
I live. What about you? What do you see as a way to open up more opportunities to share fun and joy with the people around you?
To share. Well, bringing this back to Teresa, and this really resonated with me. She said to accept fun invitations and to extend fun invitations to others. So
Hmm.
that really resonated with me because not only are you having fun, but you're also creating that ripple effect for others. And you're creating shared memories, which every time you talk about them, it brings you back to those great moments that you had.
Hmm.
Speaking of Teresa, we should probably let you know how to get in touch with Teresa Thomas of 50 Fun Things. If this is something that you would like to, if you'd like to bring her into an upcoming event or a retreat or a professional program that you have,
Hmm.
it's Teresa Thomas. You'll find her at 50 Fun Things. That's www.50funthings.com. And what I would suggest, for our listeners going forward is to participate in a 50 fun things challenge of your own, right? So I encourage you to start thinking about fun things, joyful things that you would like to have present in your life. And I'd like to take this a step further and post to social media, whether you're on TikTok or you're on LinkedIn or you're on Instagram or Facebook. Post the progress of what brings you joy, and then use the hashtags SWT for Smart Women Talking and 50 Fun Things. All right. And this is what this is going to do is we're going to be watching for those, and it's going to foster, this greater sense of community and engagement. And if you leave any comments here, we'll make sure that we share them with Teresa as well, giving you that direct line of communication there.
Yeah, it's a great experience to walk through it. Um, and it's the little things and the big things, and all of those things together, they create who we're going to be, right? It's all about opening up those doors to um, our future selves, and we get to direct that.
We
So let's
do.
do it with some fun and some happiness and some joy. And let's see if we can get the United States back up to that, at least in that top 20,
Yes.
for goodness sake.
At least in the top 20. So we have a goal. We have an outcome. All right. Well,
Yes.
Barb, it has just been great to be on this podcast with you. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed what you've heard, if you'd like to hear more, we invite you to subscribe to our podcast so that you will not miss an episode.
Join us again for Smart Women Talking, where wisdom doesn't whisper, it speaks boldly and unapologetically and has some fun along the way.
Have some fun along the way.